what we've done is turn education into a commodity. Can't we instead say education is a right for all of us that we really want? And also ensure that some apprenticeships are absolutely brilliant and really good. The best companies do really good apprenticeships, really good training, and good qualifications come at the end of it. They're even harder to get into than many universities. But some others paid a pittance of a rate, a minimum wage below a minimum wage. And that ends up often with exploitation of those apprenticeships. I want to end the youth minimum rate and say there is a minimum rate for everybody, including apprentices. After all, when you're 18, you eat just as much as when you're 25 or 35. Or in my experience, young people of 18 eat a great deal more than older people. So it is a question of ensuring that apprenticeships are good quality and good training and good qualifications at the end of it, but also are not necessarily age limited. I've been to some colleges which are taking much older apprenticeships where people want to retrain. Surely all of that is good. Let's change the attitude towards education and ensure that, as Chris pointed out, when somebody is well educated and well qualified, it's good for them, of course, but it's also good for all of us. Good for all of us when people are well qualified and able to contribute to society. So inequality starts with discrimination in education. Discrimination on the basis of areas and income. Let's give those decent, good opportunities to everybody. But there are other inequalities that have to be looked at. Health inequality. Every major city has the most grotesque levels of health inequality. Why is it, in general, if you live in a poor inner city area, you live 5 to 10 years less than somebody living in a leafy suburb in a very nice house? It's not the fault of the NHS. It's the fault of the underfunding of the NHS that much of this is not dealt with. And so it is about an NHS, a national health service, that isn't faced with constant privatisation of half of its services, that isn't faced with constant underfunding, and isn't faced with the stress levels of A&E doctors who can barely cope with the numbers coming in because the hospital's priority is paying off the private finance initiative loan rather than investing in the hospital itself. And health is, yes, physical health, but it's also mental health within our society. Yes. A quarter of us during our lifetime will suffer some kind of stress, mental health related problem, crisis. Some will get through it through the love of their partner, their friends, their family, their neighbours, their community, and they'll get through. Others will get help and support, and I hope they do, and they will get through it. Some won't. Some young people will find themselves in a crisis, and because of a sort of macho culture, they won't want to talk to anybody about it. And some young men will sadly take their own lives, usually young men, because they're frightened of talking about the crisis they're in. They can't see a way forward for it. So there's two things we can do. One, of course, is to demand real parity of esteem within the National Health Service and proper funding of our mental health services, but also in our own attitudes. Don't do denigration of people because they're going through a crisis. Don't make jokes about mental health conditions. Recognise it's something that could affect any of us. We all know people affected by it. And as a community, as a society, reach out and support them in just the same way as we'd reach out and support anybody going through a physical health crisis. It's something we can do. Let's be strong enough to support and strong enough to care. But all this comes down to our attitude in politics, our attitude in society. Are we to become a society where the richest minority at the top get richer and richer? First aid needed. Is there a doctor or first aider here? First responder, anybody? On the way. On the way. Thank you very much. Somebody needs some help over here. You okay? Thanks very much. Okay, thank you. That shows community responds very quickly when somebody needs help. Thank you very much. Thank you, response.